Welcome in one and all to another fresh shave. Sorry about the lack of uploads in the last week. Just times haven't worked out for me to sit down in front of my camera and record. But I haven't been slacking off. I've still been listening to music and compiling my notes. So I got a bit of a backlog to record, but I'm still only going to do one at a time because otherwise it's just not fun. I don't like to sit down and record 3 videos back to back. That's a drainer, and I'm doing this as a hobby. That being said, I've also spent a lot of time on this album that I'm reviewing today. It is, of course, Uada Interwoven, a reimagining album, I guess. Like it's covers, but it's covers of their own song, and they've just changed the style up. A reimagining of the black metal band's songs from their entire career as acoustics. We got 4 original tracks and 2 covers, which is apparently a rare thing. And now, like, thinking back on the back catalogue, I can't think of any recorded covers they've got. They don't seem like the band to play covers anyway. They're very absorbed in their own mythos. So yeah, we've got these 4 tracks from across their career, plus 2 covers from Rome and Nirvana. And I've had to listen to a lot of time. I swear, the first like 3 times I listened to this, I got almost no notes out of it. I just could not land on how I felt about it. And I think it took listening to it a few more times in a few different like headspaces, even talking to someone about showing it to someone else who wasn't familiar with Uada at all, and getting them to kind of, spar with me. I've reached a position on this finally. And that position, it's nice. It's really nice. But I don't think it's for me. There definitely is a market for this, though. It's really comparable to those folk bands that have a heavy crossover with the black metal fan base. If you think like Hail Lung or dark folk bands like King Dude or Rome, who they've covered, I think there's definitely a market for this in their existing black metal fan base, and it might even stretch into new things. And it's not a sound I'm inherently against. In that space, I really enjoy Ancient Wisdom or Ancient Wisdom with the 2 V's, like the Vivitch. But there's just stuff that they do for me that Uada is not doing for me. Getting into the sound, I actually think they've done a really stellar job of translating black metal to an acoustic sound. Obviously, you're really in a tough position. You can't just unplug the guitar and play it, or pick up a acoustic guitar and play it, because you're just going to have, 5 to 10 minutes of hammering tremolo picking on an acoustic guitar, and it's not going to sound particularly good. So they've really filled the void with things like string sections, something that can hold a sustained note that doesn't require continuous picking to build sustain in a way that you would do on an electric guitar. And that is to say that they don't ever do that as well. They actually do have some sections where they go in with that tremolo style, and through the layering of the different instruments comes out very flamenco. And I actually had a large discussion with Luke from Orpheus Omega about if it is or isn't flamenco, and what is flamenco, because I am the barbarian king of riffs who doesn't have any theory up in his head, so I have to go to wise man Luke and be like, Oracle, what is flamenco? Because to my Luddite brain, any sort of, I guess, tremolo picking on an acoustic guitar is flamenco. He's like, no, 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 no. He educated me. So, Barbarian King is wiser today because of this album. But even he admitted that the sections where I'm like, is this flamenco? And he's like, it sounds like flamenco. It's not. If they did all of this on one instrument only instead of layering multiple instruments, it could be. So it was really cool to get that insight from him. That's the type of thing that made me, I guess, build a bit of connection with this album. If sure, even if I'm not loving it, it's now an album where I had a really good conversation with a close friend about his passion in, teaching guitar. So now I've got a positive association with it. And I'm like, oh, actually, Interwoven's not bad. The section I was listening to is around, I think, about the 440 mark in The Dark. So now every time I listen to The Dark, I'm like, I remember that whole conversation I had with Luke about it. Like, it stretched across 2 days because we had band practice and then picked it back up. And yeah, it was really sweet. So I guess positive association really builds connection with an album. And besides that, yeah, I think they've really filled the gaps that translating black metal into an acoustic format creates. and they've done it in some really nice stylistic choices and a mix of stylistic choices. They haven't gone strings, they haven't gone, this pseudo flamenco the whole time. They've varied it up. And that variation kind of flows through the rest of the sound, and I think kind of what sets it apart from those aforementioned bands is that they don't have a single cultural heritage point that they're referencing, and the way they've translated different components creates a very unique blend of different folk styles that at times you're like, oh yeah, this is very like European medieval, and then you get those flamenco sections, you're like, oh cool, it's a little bit Spanish, and then you get these like layered vocals that kind of feel like the Hail sound, and you're like, oh, now it's really like Scandinavian. So it never really fully settles into any of that. It flows between them. It doesn't just jump. It really flows. Nothing feels like a harsh cut or that it's come about in an unexpected and unpleasant way. So I think it stands out from those aforementioned bands and would have a place in their fan bases. It's not like you're trying to sell Hail Long to Hail Long fans. You're like, hey, check out this. It's kind of like Hail Long, but it's also not. I will say, included in the song choices though are some of my favorite Uada songs, especially Jin, which opens it, and I absolutely love the guitar work in the original version of Jin. So to hear it changed and stripped out on this was like, I'm just like, no, my baby, what are you doing to my baby? That's the song I use to show people Uada. I'm like, oh, you want to know what Uada's about? Check out the first 30 seconds of this song, and yeah, they've fully rebuilt it. So that was jarring at first. I don't think they've done a bad job, but there are also sections later on the song where it kind of builds to something, and I expect the really sick riff to come in, and then it doesn't, and I'm like, oh, fucker, I'm teasing myself. I know it's not coming. I know they've rebuilt the song. I'm on my fifth or sixth listen, but something about just the way it's progressing still makes my brain go, oh yeah, this is where the cool riff's meant to kick in. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not going to. But my brain's like, yeah, but it's where it's meant to be, and then it doesn't happen, and I'm still disappointed about it. I'm like, work properly, you idiot. It's a bit of a war. I mentioned earlier about like locations and headspaces and where you listen to music, and I think maybe part of the reason I'm not super gluing to this right now is because I do most of my listening in the car, on a walk, or in the office. And in the office probably makes up about 80% of that. I wonder how this album would go with a campfire test. You know, no phones, just me and the boys, this album, around the campfire, a few drinks. I think that could really change the mood for this and, kind of bring out that more spiritual dark folk side. At the same time, though, that's kind of what keeps me away from this dark folk. It's very larpy, and I keep bringing them up, and I don't mean to, but you look at Hail One fans with that real like, I'm totally a Viking LARP, and I'm like, dude, I don't think that your third cousin who moved to Norway, despite never being born there, makes you count as being a Viking in heritage. But, that's on them to try and claim, not me. But it definitely has that aspect of, like, I see that and I cringe. I guess that's something I was into when I was a bit younger, so to see it as an adult, I do find it cringy. But, we're all on our own journeys. For them, they might just be, in the thick of it right then, and they might think it's the coolest thing ever. Whatever. But because of that, and because of my association with this music to that, when I hear it, and I'm like, oh man, what if I was drinking around a campfire listening to it? Then I'm like, oh shit. Am I a lop fucking Norwegian wannabe Viking guy? And I'm not. I know I'm not. But maybe dipping a toe into being that would make me appreciate the album more. Yeah. I think the biggest fall down for the entire album for me is in the lyricism. When you're doing black metal, lyrics can easily hide behind the vocal style, and they don't need to be entirely discernible, and even if they are discernible, they don't need to be entirely understandable. You can get very vague and esoteric with your lyrics, and it leans into the art style, especially Uada have this real, cult of the moon presentation about them. So when they sound, esoteric and ritualistic about everything, you're like, oh, yes, very, very deep, very deep. But then when it comes through in this clean vocal style and you just kind of hear everything and understand everything, you really get that, like, Uada, what the fuck are you saying moment. And that probably goes back to why I like something like Ancient Wisdom, but I'm not really gluing with this, is that they're writing dark folk songs as intended dark folk. So they are aware that their lyrics have to be more legible, essentially. Whereas Uada is taking something that was, able to hide behind the riff and the scream and is now stark and in the spotlight. Moving into the covers, interesting choices. I've never really checked out Rome before, despite them being very popular in the Melbourne scene. I gather, I feel like I saw a lot of hype for their last Melbourne tour, and that's kind of my litmus test. If I go on social media and I see everyone in the metal scene talking about one band, mm. I'm like, well, they must be popular. And then there's the Nirvana cover too. I've never cared for Nirvana or the entire grunge movement. It's just too rooted in nihilism, and nihilism is super cringy. It goes back to the whole thing of like, the best way to argue with a nihilist is try to kill them and then suddenly see if life has meaning for them. So yeah, I don't like nihilism. I don't like nihilistic music, and therefore I hated grunge, and therefore I did not like Nirvana. But I do always find it interesting when these kind of later black metal bands are built on grunge as an influence. Because obviously, the peak of the grunge scene was kind of happening at the peak of second wave black metal. So it is a less common influence on the sound. And it's probably not entirely without artistic merit, despite my grievances with it. So it is a bit more refreshing to hear grunge influences in black metal, mostly because 99% of black metal is just ripping off the second wave sound, so anything that incorporates more influences is refreshing. The covers definitely stand out and feel apart from the rest of the album. I wouldn't say either cover's bad, in fact, I did quite like the Rome one, but they definitely don't feel aligned with the rest of the album, and they don't feel like they could have come from the same source. They definitely feel like different songs by different artists with completely different writing styles. They just don't fit on a musical level. I will say though, the Nirvana song with the lyrics that it has also generates a lot of that Nirvana, what the fuck are you on about? Questioning, because the lyrics are straight up gibberish at times, so I guess there's a tie back to the Uada original tracks of vague lyricism. Probably not the greatest thematic tie for an album though. So all in all, I still can't say I love this album. When my Spotify listening stats come out for the month, it's going to be at the top of my listening because I just kept spinning it and tasting it and being like, I still don't know. But I can't see myself really going back to this. None of these versions eclipsed the original version of the song, so when I want to listen to Uada, I'm gonna just go put Jin on. I'm going to just go put the Dark on. But at the same time, I have built a bit of a positive memory association with it. So when it does come on in my playlist, I am going to be like, oh, cool. I like the Dark. I like that section where I learned about what flamenco is from a friend who's really educated when it comes to guitar. So I guess that's always a positive. If you look back at my Stay Gold video and my 500 gigs video, you'd know that I'm very positive association based in whether I like something or not. So it is really going to cement itself as a positive thing in my life just because of association. So even though I don't love the album, yeah, I like the album, I guess. And if that's hard to understand, yeah, I just have to live with it, alright? I didn't put it in there, I was born with it. But would I recommend it to other people? Probably not. Probably not unless they're already Dark Folk fans, in which case they're probably already aware of Uada. But if someone was, just discovering that, and that's fair, I think those Dark Folk bands can kind of be an inroad to extreme metal through more surface level bands. Like you can go from something like a Corpus Kalani, which is really fun and really easy to sell to people that aren't even metalheads, And then once I kind of get into that folk metal sound, you can be like, oh, check out Hail Along. It's got none of the metal, but it's very folky and very drenched in that aesthetic. And then from there, you might be able to go, oh, well, check out this Uada album. It's acoustic versions of their songs, but it's very, dark folk. And then they'll listen to that and be like, oh, well, if you like the acoustic version of Jin, check out the actual album. And maybe that's going to be, kind of. I feel like it's a little hook turn of like, you going a bit deeper and then you're actually coming back up to reach the Uada true albums, the proper studio albums. And hey, music is a weird journey. You know, you can easily draw progression plans of being like, oh yes, Black Sabbath created and like new wave of British heavy metal and thrash metal. Yeah. No one travels down that path. No one is sitting there listening to all of metal chronologically in the order it came out. You come in at weird points, you go out at weird points, you loop around, you jump all over the place. That is a-okay. This has been one hell of a tangent. So yeah, Uada, Interwoven, not bad. It's a soft recommend from me. A conditional recommend on all that stuff I just rambled about. If any of this has sounded interested to, check it out, I guess. I don't care. That's me done. This turned into way more of a ramble and a much longer video for an album that I was pretty lukewarm on anyway, but I was lukewarm on it, and then Luke warmed me up to it. How about that? I'm ending on that. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Stay tuned. We got more coming. Peace out. Mwah!